I'd like to have Press Forward Director Dale Anglin join me on stage. Dale and I are excited to be here to give you an update on Press Forward, which I think most of you know, national funding coalition dedicated to revitalizing reliable local news and strengthening communities. And it was 1 year ago at this very event, Dale, that you were announced as Press Forward's inaugural director. I know it's been quite a year for you and your loyalty, hotel and airline loyalty accounts.
It sure has. I'm not sure I exactly knew what I was getting into when he took me to dinner a year ago. Press Forward has collaborated in this last year with so many partners and stakeholders, and before we say anything else, we want to thank you. We've had over 200 reviewers from philanthropy, universities, and industry professionals, in addition to multiple journalism support organizations and intermediaries that have provided data, analysis, ideas, and capacity building to get us to the place where we are and we're going to talk about today. So I just want to thank all of you for the work that you are doing to help Press Forward be successful.
So after 1 year, how would you define Press Forward's mission?
You know, I know it seems complicated, but in one way, Press Forward's mission is pretty simple. It's to bring as many resources as possible to local news. So every day, my team, thank you to my team, wakes up thinking, how do you make the case to funders who have never considered investing in local news before? How do we get into rooms that local newsrooms cannot to show how news and information impacts our communities in so many different ways? We launched Press Forward a year and a half ago, with 22 funders. Early believers who took a leap with us, and we're so grateful to all of you who joined us in the beginning. And today we'd like to announce that we've quadrupled that number to 88 funders investing in local news.
It's obviously remarkable progress, and I get to watch Dale and her team do this every day. I sit on Press Forward's management committee, and seeing this growth up close has been amazing. Is there a major lesson you've learned 1 year in, something that maybe surprised you a little?
Okay, the journalism industry is an interesting group. I'll just leave it at that. But I will say we are definitely stronger together. A coalition like this can only make a far bigger impact than any one funder alone.
Well, that's for getting somebody who's outside of journalism. That was the trick. We'll see what you learn. Anyway, collaboration has been a critical part of the program's success, and we saw yet more than 100 people at yesterday's Press Forward workshop. It really warmed the heart. So let's talk about where the funds are being spent, because at the end of the day, this is a funding collaborative.
Absolutely. First, our funders have already put more than $200 million into local news in the last year, and you can feel that impact in every state. That number is growing every single day. Of those 88 funders, a number of them have never invested in local news before, so we're getting more people on the bus. We're focused on our 4 key areas: equity and sustainability, to ensure that local news can thrive long-term and we can build it back better; infrastructure, helping newsrooms launch and sustain themselves; and public policy, which you talked about today already, expanding access to information through smart policies.
And last fall, I think you probably saw Press Forward's pooled fund invested $20 million in 205 small newsrooms with budgets under 100 million. Everybody's budget's under 1 million. Newsrooms around the country, and at least one in every state. So we're trying to fund, that's right, that is a round of applause. And this means we're filling coverage gaps in urban areas and rural areas, and doing both of those is a crucial goal of the program.
So let me give you a few examples. Some of our grantees are in the room. Thank you very much for doing what you do. I think about the Fayetteville Flyer in Arkansas. With their funding, with our funding, this 2-person staff was able to hire its first full-time reporter after 17 years, meaning the founder can both expand coverage and put its reader revenue program in place to make it more sustainable. I also think about the Alamosa Citizen in Colorado. This digital newsroom, serving a 6-county rural market, stabilized its operations with our grant and invested in long-term sustainability. The grant allowed them to expand their advertising capacity and deepen their coverage. Now they can grow their revenue to ensure the news remains accessible and impactful.
I think one of the things we're showing is that real change can happen when funders work together. Another thing I want to dig into is public policy, which we obviously just discussed pretty significantly on that panel. A few years ago, the idea of philanthropy getting involved in public policy to support journalism was, I think we all know, we'd say complicated. But public policy is one of Press Forward's pillars, and we have demonstrated, I think, we can toe the line responsibly and look to make policy a key part of our solution to our economic problems.
Absolutely, no more debate. The conversation has changed. As many in this room have pointed out to us, actually, philanthropy alone cannot solve this crisis in local news. Our funds are crucial, but they're just a drop in the bucket. Long-term sustainability requires multiple revenue sources. I say this every week to somebody. Subscriptions, advertising, grants, and yes, even government support. That's why we're working at Press Forward with our partners on state-level efforts to help make the case for smart policies. Things like advertiser rebates and payroll tax incentives for local newsrooms. This is not an overnight solution, we understand that, particularly in today's political environment. It is a long-term strategy, but we're planting the seeds now for lasting change. In the past year alone, state bills have passed that will put over $80 million annually into local newsrooms. We can't ignore the magnitude of those dollars.
Yeah. So last year at this event, we announced a major expansion of Press Forward local chapters, and that momentum has continued. So Dale, tell us where things stand today.
Okay, that's the highlight of the year. All that travel was worth it, going into communities to see how everybody wants local news. It does not matter what type of community you're in. For those new to Press Forward, our local chapters are community-based funders leading efforts to strengthen local news in their own backyards with lots of partners. It could be outlets, libraries, universities. Last year, this time, we had 17 chapters, so we've been busy. We've more than doubled that amount. We've recently welcomed new chapters in Rhode Island, they're here, Middle Tennessee, Maine, the Pennsylvania Wilds, look that up where it is, and Kansas City. Together, our chapters have already raised $36 million for local news, and they're just getting started. Some are conducting research, like Press Forward Wyoming, thank you, Samin, which just released its first landscape study at the Governor's Business Forum, which I was at in the fall, bringing business and civic decision makers into this conversation about local news. Others, like Press Forward Minnesota, are already distributing grants. Just last week, they awarded funding to 13 local news organizations to close coverage gaps.
And I think we're in agreement that the explosion of local chapters is probably the most exciting thing about Press Forward and potentially the real true legacy it leaves down the road of local funders funding local journalism. Now, it's great to see this map filled in so much more than last year, but still see a lot of states. They're empty on there. I'm just saying. I got to think there's people in this room who live in these states, who know funders in these states. So let's try to fill this map by next year at this event. I think it's safe to say you and I have appeared more than Hope and Crosby together, I think, in the last year. I think we're happy to talk to anyone interested in starting or joining a local Press Forward chapter. Again, we've crisscrossed the country to help launch these, and we'd be happy to come to any community in this room to do the same, because showing up, as we have learned, matters.
Yes.
Showing up to these meetings, not on Zoom, but showing up and sitting in the room with people and talking to funders and journalists in the market really does work. So it's a testament to how this movement's growing, and it grows because the strongest roots are planted at the community level, and they're driven by leaders who see what's possible and want to make it happen. And a lot of those leaders are in the room today, conveniently seated together. So I'd love to ask all of our Press Forward local chapters to stand so we can recognize you.
Woo!
A huge thanks to all of you. I think building a sustainable future for local news is not easy, but it's critical. And real leadership means showing up early, right at the start, which people in this room have done. And that's when the commitment matters most. So Press Forward has now laid the groundwork so that any funder in any community can step in with confidence and launch a chapter.
Absolutely. Press Forward only works because of the funders, thank you so much, on the ground, and your partners fighting for local news in our communities. Thank you all for being a part of this, and they're a joy to work with. They can finish each other's sentences at this point, and they share what's working and what's not working with each other, so we welcome anybody to join us in this effort.
And I think all of us would like to thank you, Dale, for taking this role and being 1 year in and doing a fabulous job.
I gotta say, it's a highlight of my career to be able to do this work with all of you. If you want to hear more about Press Forward, particularly about our local chapters today, you can hear from our esteemed colleague, Christina Shee, who's going to lead a session at the Biscayne Bay Ballroom on the second floor at 11 a.m. I'm preaching to the choir here this morning. We'd love to have more join us, so please come up. Our team is all here. Please come up to us and ask us questions. We'd love to come to your community to help.
Amen. And let's fill that map.
Fill the map.
All
That's
right.
the goal.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.